morning. I swear a lot.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Lobotomy Corporation Story Records. We have a lot to go through this time. We actually have quite a few. I've left this way too long, and we've had days where multiple things have occurred and multiple days have passed, which means I have a lot to get through. I can already see multiple on this screen alone. It's going to be a doozy, but we're at 70% abnormality dissolution, and we still have like half the days left to go in a normal run, so we might actually get through everything. And now I need to remember the ones I've already done. I've definitely done that. Haven't. Nameless fetus. Oh boy, what a start. Okay, this will be interesting. It takes the form of an unborn fetus. Its skin is covered in a mucus, sticky liquid. Small veins can be seen here and there. The abnormality's abnormally bulged eyes are usually closed. It always seems unsatisfied, but what exactly it needs is undetermined. It has a great obsession with being fed, and if it is not fed regularly, its stress levels rise drastically. Once it reaches a certain level of stress, it cries out loudly in a way that mentally harms all who may be around it. Excerpt from interview log 2-49, employee F2706. I've never seen it smile. It always seems to want something, but we can never fulfill its desire. I guess the reason why its cries are destructive is because its unsatisfied needs are so strong. When I was a newbie here, none of my colleagues would tell me exactly what we fed it. I thought it was just some weird milk or something like what other normal babies would eat up. It is a baby after all, underneath all that grossness, but that wasn't the case. It only eats human flesh, can you believe it? To stop it from crying, we have to hold a drawing every so often. Do you know what that means? Excerpt from a terminated observation log. When I first heard that the nameless fetus had to be fed, I thought we'd have to give it food with like a spoon or something. It looks too weak to do anything, and its mouth isn't fully developed either. Later, when I found out that it ate meat, I thought it'd have to be chewed up by someone first so it'd be soft enough to eat. When I asked my working buddy about it, he laughed and said, "No way, that's ridiculous. We just need to leave the food in the unit and go." I still thought about how in the world that fetus could eat stuff. I wondered if we served it some kind of succulent steak that's not even available to us in the cafeteria. Out of curiosity, I decided to sneak a peek at the feeding process of the nameless fetus. Only level 3 and up employees are assigned to that process, but I was able to attend because I made up an excuse that I was covering for someone. As I nervously watched, wondering if my lie would be worth it, some people came along with large plastic bags. Does it eat that much? And when they opened the bags, I could only gape in horror. They were human corpses, and the baby ate it. How? I don't even want to imagine it. It had a large scar on its stomach. I really thought it was some kind of scar, like a large flower its stomach would open, dripping with slimy liquid. It was the greediest creature in the world. That day onward, I was a vegetarian. Excerpt from an employee's diary. I'm poorly. I've worked for Lobotomy for about a month now. My parents are really proud of me for getting into a wing like this, and all my friends are jealous of me. There's a special employees-only event held by our company. No one knows when or why this event is held. Even my coworker who's been here for 5 years doesn't seem to know. When the event starts, a giant roulette begins to spin. Everyone stops what they're doing to stare at the roulette and see who will be the lucky winner, with desperate looks on their faces. The name of every single employee is written on that roulette. Whoever ends up being selected, they're extremely lucky. They'll be promoted and transferred to another branch of the company headquarters. In addition, their family will be gifted with an unimaginable fortune. At the headquarters, you don't have to worry about being attacked by abnormalities or need to bid farewell to your dead colleagues. My senior, Redacted, really hopes that they'll get picked eventually. You see, their father got into an accident one day and it takes a lot of money to keep him alive and well. I really hope the roulette picks Redacted someday. When my senior's name showed up on the roulette, I congratulated them with all my heart, though they didn't seem too happy for some reason. Others gave them a hug, one by one. Everyone was crying for some reason. They said goodbye to me, shedding tears while trying to force a smile. I haven't seen them since. I'm sure they're working under much better conditions with a really nice salary, but when I try to bring them up in conversation, people stop talking as if I've spoken some sort of taboo. I still remember the last thing they said to me before they left. One day, you'll understand the meaning of the desperation on their faces when the roulette spins. The manager holds the specific right to call a special event for all the employees in the facility without any cause for occasion. When the event starts, a giant roulette will spin and select one lucky employee's name. That employee will be promoted, transferred to a different branch, and their family will receive a yearly pension. No personnel are allowed to invade the manager's right to hold this event. The following information is forbidden to the public eye. Conditions required to hold the event. Data access restricted. Data access restricted. The crying of nameless fetus has reached its peak. The roulette will select an employee that satisfies one of the conditions below. questions the true purpose of the company, conducts or plans unauthorized experiments with the abnormalities, maintains an excessive curiosity about the abnormalities and conducts or plans unauthorized observation on them, is incapable of working due to physical or psychological trauma. Unauthorized signifies that it's unauthorized by the corporation or Angela. The following actions will be taken with the employee selected by the roulette: expunging all records the company has about the employee, sacrificing the employee to the abnormality, informing the employee's family that they have been transferred to another branch. Yeah, the nameless fetus situation is horrible, and like they've sort of presented it to the employees like, you know, oh, they've gone to live on a farm where they can run around as much as they like. It's really morbid, very, very, very dark. And even worse is this bit down here where it's like, oh yeah, we'll in some cases we'll make a point to have employees put into the lottery who question what we're doing or generally act in a way we don't like, so they could even use it to try and get rid of employees that are problematic or they just simply don't like. 2 birds with 1 stone. That's fucked. I'm gonna speed this along a little bit because we've got quite a few to go through today. Singing machine. Yeah, singing machine. It takes the form of a long cuboid machine. At first glance, all it seems to be is a simple industrial grinder. However, the existence of it having an individual will meets the criteria to be classified as an abnormality. See, I initially thought it should be a tool. When approached or touched, the employee will become delirious and throw themselves into the abnormality's mechanical body. Afterward, the machine's ventilation fan will quickly shut off, and the sound of the abnormality operating can be heard from within. This process takes about 5 minutes. After a few experiments, we have concluded that the abnormality desires to gain music from this interaction. There is no detailed research into the abnormality's music. However, there is a hypothesis that it has a special characteristic that attracts humans in correlation to their specific behaviors or psychological counseling records. If one of our employees has been determined to be addicted to the music, there will need to be treated quickly to prevent any collateral damage. Excerpt from counseling log. I just wanted to write the observation report and get out, but he was acting odd. I wanted him to not get too close, but Redacted took 1 step closer. He said he'll let me hear a fantasy. Then he opened up the lid and jumped into the machine. The lid closed and a loud noise came from inside the creature. There was no way to know what was happening, but I was too terrified to do anything. Omitted. In the dark, I realized that thing was playing an instrument. Crushing and cutting Redacted's body, it was creating a rhythm. As I was contemplating my horrific realization, the lid opened again. Bits and pieces of Redacted were in there, so little that you had to wonder what happened to the rest. Omitted. Notice, must read, symptoms of addiction to the music of Singing Machine. Attempts to bring other employees to the containment unit of Singing Machine by physical force, dilated pupils, greatly reduced concentration and cognitive abilities, refusal to listen to other forms of music. Please list any additional symptoms that are found and immediately report any employees that are suspected of the noted symptoms. Excerpt from incident logs. Date, Redacted. Employee M1840 went missing in the company. 2 days later, on the Redacted, part of a corpse was found inside the singing machine. Genomic analysis revealed that the corpse belonged to the missing employee. The employee was a new hire who had only been working for the company for 3 months, and they had no record of an assignment to work with the abnormality. The culprit was found to be employee Redacted, who was in charge of the singing machine. Redacted confessed after extensive investigation. I know it's crazy, but I had to hear that music again. It was stuck in my head for months. I performed all kinds of experiments. When the machine takes in a cat, it plays for 1 minute, a large dog, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but nothing could compare to the music it makes when it eats a human. It might sound ridiculous, but I feel satisfied having heard it once more. It's strange, this one really blurs the line between of what an abnormality can be, because like, yes, it does technically have a will, but it is a machine. It does a basic thing and it performs a basic function, and it doesn't do anything beyond that. And of course, the psychological effect on the employees is completely fucked up, because like we've all had that situation where you've had a song stuck in your head, you know, and you really want to listen to it again, or like you can't figure out where you heard it and stuff like that. But having that thought, that feeling, that mental process be like dialed up to 11 and actually be a form of mind control, basically. Yeah, this thing could be incredibly dangerous. Luckily, it hasn't done too much to my facility other than, you know, the victim it claimed, but that was only because I didn't know how to work with it. But luckily, I haven't had to deal with the addiction mechanic, which is handy, very handy. Big bird, big bird. A large, many-eyed bird that patrols the dark forest with an everlasting lamp. Unlike regular birds, it lacks wings and has long arms instead with which it can pick things up. Omitted would stare intently at anyone it found, young or old, and bite their head off. There is a tale of a beast that lies in the deepest, darkest part of the forest who dazzles creatures away, never to be seen again. To protect all creatures from the beast, the big bird burned all of its feathers to make a wick, and then made a lamp that would burn forever. With this eternally lit lamp, the big bird wandered the forest, warning the creatures not to stray too deep into the trees. Thanks to the large bird, fewer creatures fell victim to the beast in the forest. However, it was still concerned for the creatures still being killed by the beast. An idea struck the big bird's mind. If I kill the creatures first, then no one would be killed by the beast. Since then, only rumors of a beast that would bite your head off flew around the dark forest. It is said that the beast carefully examines and stares at its victims to see if they are the beast that lures helpless creatures away. This is a tale from a town in the location Redacted area. We heard the tale from the town's oldest inhabitant, Redacted. Although there is a general assumption that the tale was told to prevent children from entering the forest, it is uncertain who first inherited the tale. We can't do anything while the abnormality has its eyes open. It stares intently, and as it keeps staring, omitted. This is why we need to put it to sleep first. We can only begin working when all of its numerous dozens of eyes have entered into slumber. And it turns out that the tale was not made up. We could find this large bird in the forest. Right after that, we tried to look for the beast that dazzles people. We searched through every nook and cranny of the forest, investigated every single creature in detail. A month later, we came to this conclusion. There was no such beast in the forest, except for that big bird. This abnormality is completely ignorant of the common perception of death. The abnormalities that reside in this corporation can be placed into two different categories. The first category is those who understand perfectly well that the concept and meaning of death is, and will attack our staff with the intent to kill. The second has those who are aware of the concept of death but attack without malicious intent. This abnormality that we have contained here fits into neither of these two categories. To this bird, death in of itself is salvation. If it just ripped off the head of a poor little girl who got lost in the forest, to it, there was no mistake, malice, or murder. It thinks it just saved the girl from the beast. So I've noticed, the birds and the magical girls, the common theme among all of them definitely seems to be corrupted intent. You know, like they had an idea of what they wanted to do, and that idea has become twisted over time. The big bird wanted to save people from the creature in the forest, and through like a warped understanding of the situation came to the conclusion that, well, if they're dead, the beast can't kill them. Ignoring the fact that, of course, Big Bird would now basically be considered the beast that kills them. So it hasn't fixed the problem. Things are still dying. Nothing has changed. But the Big Bird's a problem. Big Bird's a problem, not by itself. By itself, it's fairly easy to deal with. Yeah, I might lose an employee, perhaps, while suppressing it, although if I'm careful, I can avoid that. But by itself, Big Bird is not that big a deal. But the problem for me is that it's right next to the mountain of smiling bodies. Which means taking on the mountain of smiling bodies is hard, while this thing is also out, because it can lure my employees away to be killed. Honestly, the solution to this situation is to be less skittish about employee deaths. We're just going to have to accept that people will die, which I'm sure is a difficult pill to swallow for everyone who has submitted a fan nugget, but hey, it will happen, so be prepared for it. We've done Beauty and the Beast. We haven't done Rudolph The Sleigh. Interested to see what that's going to be about. An old card attached to the abnormality. Merry Christmas! Santa rushes along the night sky to deliver presents to happy kids who don't cry. Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, shines his nose so bright through the fog while tugging along a sleigh full of presents, guiding it along tonight. Every happy kid around the world deserves a present. From afar, the abnormality resembles Santa Claus atop his sleigh, but upon closer inspection it is completely different from its description in common folklore. Contrary to the titular character Rudolph, the sleigh drags the reindeer along. We've observed the three different portions of the abnormality separately. Rudolph, an organic entity in colors of green, red, and white that appears to be a horse or deer. Its muscles do not seem to move. Many of our staff report movement in the eyes. Some even say that they made eye contact with it. There's a 30-centimeter diameter hole in its abdomen. Armed employees later reported that the hole was empty. Santa, a mysterious and transparent organic entity on top of Rudolph, it is full of what seems to be human organs, all of which function normally. The sleigh. The size is similar to that of a child. The plating looks like organic skin, and there are white runners attached to the bottom. The accessories of the sleigh are replaced with stiff, severed hands. Unknown objects are carefully wrapped in gifts. Many employees tried to open these gifts but failed. Rumor has it they can only be opened on Christmas Day. These three elements are crudely sewn together. Dr. Redacted suggested that all three parts may be made from a single body. Whoever made this thing must have had a great hatred for Christmas. Well, that or they've never seen Santa Claus. So this thing's fucked. Like, I didn't even know that this thing consisted of three entities. It all just looked like a weird amalgamation into one thing, actually, honestly bearing kind of a resemblance to the amalgamation of skin. It's horrible, it's terrifying, and Rudolph itself, Only its eyes are mobile and moving, the rest of it is just don't move. Which explains why the picture focuses on its eyes, but man, that is unsettling in the extreme. Not a particularly dangerous abnormality, we've suppressed it multiple times, but spooky. It's dangerous to the clerks for sure. It tears the clerks apart because that white damage just offs them extremely quickly, but don't like it. Don't like it in general. The Christmas suit is fun. That's the only thing I like about it, really. The rest of it's just terrible. Fragment of the Universe, this will probably be detailed. An abnormality that resembles a child's innocent doodles. Originally, it had no stable form, its shape would continually morph. To this day, its aspects still change, albeit at a much slower pace. Component analysis has revealed that the abnormality consists of matter that does not exist on Earth. It is notable for its metaphysical appearance that one cannot explain with words. It often shows incomprehensible linguistic activity. One employee tried to decipher its speech, see document 1, employee David's song, but their mental contamination level rose beyond the limit within several days. They suffered severe psychosis and had to be quarantined. The abnormality's tentacles, which are quite different from what we consider the average tentacle, for simplicity's sake we've monikered them as tentacles, can pierce through the barrier of humanity. Employees impaled by the tentacles will suffer semi-permanent brain damage. When the abnormality escapes its containment unit, it will emit noises in the corridor. As the sounds it makes have what could be considered a melody and syllables, we consider it singing. However, none of our staff can precisely remember it, given that most of the time they are unable to describe it due to their serious brain damage. Those who were within 100 meters of the singing called it a sound unheard of in this world. Because of these descriptions, we've titled it Echoes from the Beyond. See document 2, Singing. Experiment 1, the possibility of communication. We've determined that the abnormality has an intelligence similar to, or even higher than, that of humans, and gave it a simple language learning course. As a result, a crude communication by combining words has become possible. The following is a segment of the communication record with the abnormality. Are all of your kind similar in appearance? Negative, outside, child, see, picture, face, happy, change, form. Why have you come here? Knowledge, share, human. Why do you want to share your knowledge with us? Understanding, knowledge, moment, no. Universe, coincidence, negative, none. This section is an attempt to decipher the conversation with the abnormality. It based its form on a picture drawn by a child. It changed its form because the child's expression while drawing it was happy. It came here to share its species' knowledge with us. The moment we fully understand that knowledge, we will know their ultimate goal. There is no such thing as a coincidence in the universe. So this thing is actually the closest we're going to get. Maybe the spore creature also being along a similar line, but this is the closest I think we're going to get to actual alien life. Which is interesting because, you know, we have technically abducted it. It has been captured. We've captured it. It lives in a cell. So when it's... Oh, we're not done. Whoops, we're not done. Sorry, we're not done. We're not even close to being done. Experiment 2, an experiment on laughter. After watching a video about laughing for 30 minutes, the abnormality understood the concept of laughing. After that, when employees entered its containment unit to work with it, it would sometimes emit a strange noise with what appeared to be the shape of a smile on its face. It looked like it was mimicking laughter. Experiment 3, comprehension of symbols. We taught it the meaning of various symbols along with language. Among them was the shape of a heart. This symbol provoked a distinct change from the abnormality. This is the symbol of the heart. Many believe that emotions come from the heart, and this symbol is used to express positive emotions or a liking towards someone. Omitted. Afterwards, several symbols resembling hearts were seen on the abnormality's body. It seemed to understand that the symbol could be used to express friendliness towards humans. Combining the results of the previous 2 experiments, we can confirm that this abnormality is non-hostile to humans and wishes to become friends. Document 1, employee David's song. David was famous in his department for his attempts to communicate with the Fragment of the Universe. He was an intellectual who enjoyed reading philosophical books and gazing at the stars. He held interest in the abnormality, and as such, he got the job. He researched its language and behavior purely out of personal interest. So what became of David? Eventually, he succeeded in entering the domain of the Fragment of the Universe. However, it was obvious that his small brain couldn't withstand it. He was transferred to the psychiatric ward and died of starvation while singing an unrecognizable song. This is why the abnormality's voice cannot be revealed to the public. Audio record. Echoes in the Universe, currently removed. Document 2, Singing. Why didn't you tell me earlier that the abnormality was responsible for their condition? I have no idea if there's any pattern, but they all show the same strange behavior on the exact same days. Can you imagine a group of patients staring at the sky with dazed faces, wailing strange noises in the corridor at night while everyone is asleep? I had such a difficult time persuading the other patients that they must have been practicing for the company's upcoming Halloween event. Psychiatric treatment and medicine won't help. Coming, still coming. They keep repeating those words, and anything else they utter is not from any language we know. I think sending them to a general hospital was an unwise decision. So, this confuses me a little bit. It confuses me a little bit, because this thing can escape, and it is essentially hostile. When someone panics during work, the glyph counter lowers. When the work result is bad, the glyph counter also lowers. It escapes, and it presumably impales people with its quote-unquote tentacles. Why would it attack? It is non-hostile and wishes to communicate with humans, unless this is a ploy. Unless the hearts and the mimicking laughter and the singing rule in attempts to simply lull us into a false sense of security. But even then, what's its purpose? It's intelligent. It's clearly intelligent. It's more intelligent than humans, in fact. What does it want? What is it trying to do? I don't think it's trying to escape. I think it could escape if it wanted to quite easily. It's a very strange one. Very peculiar one. I'm sure Lemon will have fun writing about this one. Yeah, the Little Prince. That's who I was referring to when I said the spore thing. Ah, Deflatius. Interesting. We've got some interesting ones coming up as well, Jesus. The devil ultimately wished for despair wears down the mind and drains one's will to go forward. When one feels there's nothing left to go for, their soul falls down to hell, the devil's domain. This is why the devil finds it more entertaining to watch people fall to despair rather than to simply kill them. We describe it as selling one's soul to the devil. When a marksman received a gun from the devil proposed a childish contract. The last bullet would puncture the head of his beloved. The moment he heard that, he sought and shot all the people he loved. Then he told the devil, "This magical bullet can truly hit anyone, just like you say." With the last bullet gone for good, the hunter traveled to numerous worlds. Sometimes he helped those in need or fought evil, but it was all done on impulse, not a gesture of goodwill or ideals. In one world, he was called a righteous hunter, while in another, he was a blood-stained gunman. One day, the marksman realized the devil no longer followed him. He pondered why, then realized that his soul had already fallen to hell from the beginning. The contract had already been fulfilled, so the devil left. The marksman, now a devil himself, continues to pull the trigger to gather the souls of others. Just as the devil said, the bullets will puncture anything you please, forever. So he's just kind of like, he's basically a demon. He's like he's a fairy tale creature, so he is kind of that. He is a in the eyes of the normal people in this setting, and indeed the other universes in which it goes through. He's a mythological figure. He's a phantom. He goes around shooting people. Sometimes he helps people, sometimes he doesn't, and he's doing the same in our facility as well. Sometimes he helps, sometimes he fires at us. There's not a lot to talk about, really, in the grand scheme of things, but Deflatius is so fucking cool, and that gear, it's WAV gear. In fact, it's a WAV gun with a HE suit, but it punches way above its weight. It's very impressive. This is going to be a whole thing. Yeah, it's going to be a whole thing. Yeah, it's going to be a whole thing. Yeah, it's going to be a whole thing. Elijah had a large family to provide for. Her impoverished parents would always say, "Although we don't have anything to pass on to you, we have the most valuable treasure, honesty and diligence. These may not be of great help to you now, but they will make all of you happy someday." One day, a dense fog covered the city. The hazy fog, thought to be a natural phenomenon at first, didn't dissipate even after a few days had passed. Some claimed it was making them feel nauseous or making them retch, but most people thought nothing of it. A lot of people continued to work and go about their days in the fog. Of course, Elijah was one of the few people who had to be okay with it. She was the only family member with a proper job, and the inheritance of poverty had left them in huge debt. Elijah had several brothers, but their wills were broken after being faced with several failures. Elijah was always tired, but she thought if she just worked a little harder, things would work themselves out, just like what her parents used to say, and just like in the fairy tales, just like that bird who will eventually spread its white wings and became the envy of all. Some people left the city to escape the fog. They said the city was done for. Elijah didn't listen. Elijah felt queasy at times. She felt her whole body blistering. Almost there, just a little more. If she just held out a little longer, the clothes made of nettles would be complete, and if she threw them to her brothers she once loved dearly, then the days when her family lived harmoniously could be restored. One day, on the way home after work, she bumped into a pedestrian running at full speed. Though the pedestrian who crashed into her was at full sprint, he was unable to get back up, so she offered him a helping hand, asking if he was alright. He slapped her hand away and got up on his own. The pedestrian took a few faltering steps before collapsing again. The man seemed like he was running away from something. He seemed worried that Elijah would hurt him. Elijah tried to ask him what was wrong, however the pedestrian opened his mouth first. The simple act of opening his mouth seemed laboured, so she patiently waited for him to talk. The pedestrian didn't open his mouth to speak. He began to vomit a mixture of blood and waste. The gooey mixture poured from his mouth at first, and it gushed out from his nose, eyes, and ears. If he hadn't been expelling from all of his orifices, then Elijah might have tried to help him. Elijah thought she heard a shout in the distance. She left the vomiting man behind and decided to walk slowly. What happens when the black swan wakes up from dreaming of a white swan? There were many people amidst the fog, some screaming, some laughing, some wielding clubs, some curled up, bodies covered in wounds, dark, wet, and fetid dregs were scattered all over the ground, covered in footprints. She began to look for her brothers, her family who needed to wear the nettle clothing to be free from the curse, ones whom she shared happy dreams with. She saw her dear brothers in the distance. Elijah fell to her knees and finally started to puke up the thing everyone else was vomiting. The lake ripples gently, as if a number of swans just took flight. I still have no means by which to even understand remotely what this is about. Because I've seen the dream of a black swan escape. And I don't even know. I have no idea. And why is the containment cell just her brothers? She's not in there, or if she is, she's invisible, you can't see her. And why do they morph where after the cliff counter goes down? And I don't understand it at all. Also, Elijah. Was Malkuth not originally called Elijah before she became Malkuth? Is there a correlation there? Probably not. Probably not, but it seems weird to use the same name. Nah, actually, there's almost no way that's the case. No, that's ridiculous. The ending of this story record actually confirms that that's not the case. Unless that's a cogito effect, but I don't know. I have no idea what to make of Black Swan, truly. There aren't enough details to even begin to understand what it is. It is entirely alien to me. Very creepy. This one's going to be sad, I can tell. I can just tell. Just keep showing him the book. Oh, and it has to be a page with pictures, since he probably can't read. When the experiment seems to drag on, try to draw his attention, like mimicking sounds. I don't need to explain every detail, right? Yes, I know, it's unfortunate, pitiful and sad. I do feel human emotions, thank you very much. However, he ultimately survived thanks to this place. I hope he continues to live, in any shape or form. If you're thinking the same thing, it'd be better off if you dropped that guilt right now. Tell the kid today's treat is going to be grape-flavored candy. It's his favorite. Excerpt from an encyclopedia. Contrary to popular belief, most sharks are small in size. There are only a handful of species that cause harm to humans. After all is said and done, the biggest appeal of sharks is their strong jaws and teeth. A shark's jaw can apply an intense amount of force, around 20 times that of an adult human. Besides, their vision and olfactory senses are extremely well developed, allowing them to locate their targets easily. This is why sharks could reign as the ocean's greatest predator until today. The parents had long deserted the child. They said the old infection would kill the child before 2 years passed. The researchers were the child's new parents. He learned to coo and walk. Although unable to talk properly, the child liked the ocean. Instead of visiting the ocean, the child was given candy which let him see the ocean. Many colourful nights and days passed. The child, who was thought to die within 2 years, managed to live for a long time. As always, he liked sweet candy, followed them, and loved the place as his home. Though the only thing the child could do was run around inside a cramped lab instead of a grass field under the sun, his steps were shaky, but filled with enthusiasm, excited about what kind of candy he would eat tomorrow. I don't even know. I don't fucking know how that led to this. Whatever the fuck this thing is, there's not even enough there really to speculate. The candy did it? The infection did it? I don't know. There is truly nothing to work with here. I have no fucking idea. The dreaming current is a goddamn mystery. I also forgot that it was a WAV. I keep thinking it's a HE, but it's actually a VAV. And quite dangerous when it breaks out. I think it murdered quite a few of my employees on part 20. It's a problem. It's creepy. I don't understand it, even slightly. It is just pure visual noise, and none of it makes any goddamn sense. Maybe that's the point. Ah, we're here. Yes, we have arrived. We've arrived here. It's not like these kinds of happenings are uncommon here, but one day, dozens of employees were killed in an incident. The reason is the same as always. Something breaches, they attempt to stop it, then it leads to another breach. You preach into the choir. The one fortunate thing was that the department was sealed off before things could get any worse, so they all died in the same place. Literally, a mountain of bodies was formed. Obviously, no one wanted to clean up that mess. Normally, it should have been taken care of within the day, but because the accident was just so horrific and everyone was so exhausted, the cleanup was delayed with authorization from the department's Sephira. Don't ask me which department it was in, I don't remember all the details. When left out in the open, a corpse will begin to rot within a few hours. Most of the bodies that die here are damaged in one way or another, so they decay even faster. You probably don't know it yet, but most of the employees here are rather skilled at cleaning up dead bodies. Tidying up over and over will make anyone an expert at it, whether you want to or not. Let's say someone you were just talking to about dinner plans died horrifically. With your repeated experience to help you, you won't be vomiting or running away at least. Whoops, I sidetracked a little there. Anyway, in normal circumstances, the mountain would have been removed quickly, but it remained in the department for a long time, so it decayed, melted, corroded, and broke down following the laws of nature. That's how its creation began. From the mountains of bodies, the dead gave life to something. Amazed yet? I've still got more to tell you. The dead fused with one another, all smiling, sharing body parts, at least those that were still intact. They became each other's legs and mouths. That doesn't mean their consciousness has also been restored though. It only wants one thing: our flesh drenched in blood. When there's an announcement of someone's death, the first thing you should do is check if this thing's quarantined. Once it gets a whiff of the scent, it will pursue us in an instant. The smiling faces are unfamiliar, yet sorrowful. The more bodies it comes across, the more defined its shape becomes, and it is never satisfied. I'm telling you all this because it's almost here. Accidents always happen in this place. Some may spare a bit of their time for a moment of silence, but most will turn away thinking, again? At the very least, one thing that was done right is that the department's been sealed off. I'm the only one left anyways. Did you learn anything from my story? What kind of lesson can be learned from a story as horrible as this, you ask? It's similar to most fairy tales. Don't be lazy is the lesson. When my voice ceases, come here and clean up your colleagues in exactly 3 minutes. Pretty soon I won't be able to keep talking. I'm about to swallow a large bomb. Time's running out. Blood is flowing all around here. I'm starting to see the smiling faces now. Something you don't see much of around here. Don't be surprised when you hear a loud explosion. Like I said, it's precisely 3 minutes. I'm sure a bomb this size will be able to suppress it. The last body it finds will be mine. That's fascinating because the Mountain of Smiling Bodies was actually created in the facility. This was actually made in LobCorp. We didn't go out and find it. It was created in LobCorp from corpses that were not cleaned up fast enough. It is a problem. The Mountain of Smiling Bodies is a problem. I don't think... If you get in quickly, it's not as dangerous as, say, Nothing There or Censored. Although those two abnormalities also require you to get in there quickly before the situation gets worse. But... man, when the Mountain of Smiling Bodies gets going, it's a problem. Not just because its third form is so excessively powerful and the second form has an incredibly powerful AoE attack, but because if you lower its health, if you deplete its health in the second and third forms, you don't even kill it, you just knock it back a phase, and in its first phase it can just run past you and find another corpse. It is astronomically difficult to deal with once it gets going, and that's why the only thing I can suggest for dealing with it is to have all of your employees, or a very large amount of them, right outside where it lives, and have them just gun it down the moment it escapes. Don't let it get a body. Never let it get a body. That's all I can think of to prevent that thing from doing what it wants to do. An abnormality taking the form of a straw scarecrow. The straw is stained with blood. The head is empty as if someone forcefully tore it off. It shows aggression towards certain employees, attempting to take their brains. These employees are those who scored excellent on the intelligence test. Each city needed to have its own unique technologies. That was the key to reinvigorating the city. There were numerous ones, but among them, one city saw advancements in technology for the replacement of body parts. It was possible to repair or augment body parts that were broken and malfunctioning, or simply undesirable. Every citizen was eligible for that treatment. However, rumors circulated when a rich person looking to improve their eyesight approached a beggar with broken lungs struggling to breathe. They would transplant the beggar's eyes to the rich person. Then they would abandon the beggar's corpse somewhere along the outskirts, still with those rotting lungs. The city's representative reassured them, dismissing the rumors as nonsense. To put the rumors to rest, they announced that they would select a number of sick people from the outskirts and fix any body parts they wanted. Out of the lucky few who were chosen, one returned several later. He had a visible long scar on his head. People asked him how he felt, and he responded that his head felt lighter. He was a man filled with sorrow who used to cry a lot, so everybody believed that the surgery was a success. However, when he was asked about the whereabouts of the others who went with him, he just smiled without uttering a word. Before long, even at his parents' funeral, he showed no emotion. All he did after the treatment was stare out the window and talk to himself. Eventually, he hung himself on the doorknob of his house. Some people thought that the treatment caused his troubles, but after a few days, he was completely forgotten. The city still remained a beautiful place where the emerald roads sparkled bright as ever. This doesn't seem entirely relevant to the abnormality. What, are we supposed to assume that that guy just became the Scarecrow? His brain was taken out, or large parts of his brain was taken out, so he became the Scarecrow? I don't know. It was a lobotomy in Lobotomy Corporation? Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing is that the Scarecrow is supposed to be a play on the Wizard of Oz. The Scarecrow wants a brain, this one wants a brain. It's just a little more aggressive and forward about how it gets brains. A rather spooky abnormality, but certainly not one that's dangerous, at least not for me, because I had, HOD's core suppression and good equipment. I hate these traps. I hate these fucking traps where it's like, oh yeah, 4 and 5 are very high success rate, but if you do it, it will immediately break out. What a pain in the ass. Okay, and I believe our last one for today is the dimensional refraction variant. This will be interesting. It was a strange phenomenon. It was a phenomenon in and of itself. There was nothing within the units that could be detected with the naked eye. Just like those who had made similar claims some time ago, just because something cannot be seen does not mean it does not exist. The containment unit's square length was XXX meters, and this is the cognitive range of the abnormality. The only advice that can be given is to remain cautious and aware of your surroundings. Breathing will become impossible while within the range of the abnormality. The area will become a vacuum. Strictly speaking, the abnormality itself is the vacuum phenomenon. Record of the death of employee Chomsky. There was no way to confirm if the abnormality had left its containment unit or not. All of a sudden, Chomsky had stopped in the middle of the corridor and just stood there. The hallway was busy at the time, with many a person passing by, and of course, many of these people expressed their discontent for having part of the hallway blocked. Then, all of a sudden, Chomsky's body suddenly rose over 3 meters into the air. His arms and legs were awkwardly stretched out as if he were being crucified. His legs had still been on the ground. He might have looked as if he were performing in an elegant play or doing ballet. Everyone in the hallway stopped to look at him. Then Chomsky started to scream. He screamed like a madman who had witnessed something horrifying. Nobody knew what to do. Some of our employees attempted to pull Chomsky down by the legs. He didn't budge. After that, Chomsky stopped screaming. A short silence followed, and Chomsky opened his mouth, attempting to mutter something. The 2 employees who were trying to pull Chomsky down started to scream. Blood poured down from his body. His arms and legs separated, leaving his limbless body floating in the air. All hell broke loose in the hallway, and everybody began running. How to recognize this abnormality is a matter that needs to be discussed further. Currently, we are researching ultraviolet technology that may be able to detect the abnormality using the eyes of a shrimp. But the performance so far has been far from satisfactory. For now, a good method is to have employees entering its containment unit bring a glass cup filled only halfway with water. They'll need to place this cup on the floor while working. If the cup begins to slosh, threatening to spill over, the employee must stop working and leave the unit immediately. It is a strange phenomenon. How does it have the will to even attack anyone? It just appears to be the vacuum itself. I'm very concerned about if this thing ever breaks out, because I'll actually have to find it with my own eyes. And from the sounds of things, it literally tears people apart. With like force powers and shit, I don't know. Spooky, interesting, creepy, and apparently its containment unit has no fucking oxygen in it, so generally unpleasant to work with. Spooky in its unknowableness, and scary potentially when it breaks out, because I don't know what it'll do other than white damage, maybe? That is just the work damage. It doesn't necessarily do that damage in the field. Like the Mountain of Smiling Bodies in its first phase will do red damage, and then second and third phases do black damage. Like, I don't know, anything's possible. This thing is a complete anomaly. Spooky. Spooky purely in the case of I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. No one knows what it is. I get that's the point, but that doesn't make me feel better. But there we are, ladies and gentlemen. We have caught up with all of our abnormalities up to this point. There were quite a few to go through, it must be said. I'm going to quickly scan through and make sure I haven't missed anyone. Yeah, that's all of them. Wow. 70% abnormality dissolution. We're nearly there, actually. We've nearly seen every single abnormality. I'm dreading the train. That's definitely going to be a mem repo. From what everyone's been telling me about the fucking train, that is going to be a mem repo. There is an abnormality of a certain designation that I can't remember. It might even be 0240, actually, I can't remember. But I think there is another abnormality of a certain designation that is a horrific nightmare and I should be very careful about. But we can evaluate situations as they come. I initially thought that Mountain of Smiling Bodies and Big Bird combination would require a mem repo in order for us to be able to keep things going, but we've managed to deal with that situation thus far. I don't know. It depends. I like to avoid mem repoing purely because it slows things down, and it's even more awkward now that we have fan-submitted nuggets come in, because then I have to re-put in those nuggets, because I don't want people to lose their places because I've mem repoed, so I need to remember who's been where and what and why and how. But I will mem repo if I have to, I just prefer to avoid it if I can. But that's all I've got time for today, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like we won't be doing too many more of these because there aren't many abnormalities left. Let me know, whose story records are your favorite? It doesn't even necessarily have to be this video's abnormalities. Just in general, who has your favorite story records? If it's one I haven't seen before, then please just use the you know, the number designation rather than the actual name, because I don't really want Abnormality spoiled for me. Everyone's been very cool about that, and I appreciate it, but I digress. I'm rambling. Thank you so much for watching, and whatever happens next time, and I mean, we still haven't gotten Red Riding Hood, which is weird. Still haven't seen Red Riding Hood. I imagine she'll show up at some point. That's the only abnormality I know of, other than what we have here, because I haven't seen the rest. But whatever happens, whoever shows up, whatever we see, and however horrible it may be, I hope I see you there. Doodles. Goodbye.